Now I want to move on to panel 1 here, although I've got the bottom panel sort of tightened up with the pencils. I'm going to leave inking it until last because I don't want to be working on panel 1 with all that wet ink at the bottom of the page. So just moving on to tightening up the figures now in the first panel. Just again with my regular 2mm clutch pencil, just regular HB leads, just tightening up the figures in this panel. It's fairly loose at the layout stage, so I'm just tightening everything up, so I'm not doing too much guesswork again with the inking. And again, I'm referencing Giant Size X-Men #1, a reprint to the left there, just to make sure I've got the scene consistent with what actually happened in the original scene. Now I've actually decided to move the tractor onto the other side in this layout. Basically, I want to have more of an establishing shot in this first panel, because although the panels are sequential, they're not immediately following each other in the timeline. There's a large time gap between each of the panels, so I want to try and establish as much as I can in each panel. Especially since panels 3 and 4 really don't have a lot of establishing going on. I want to have a bit more of a background here going in the first panel, so just decided to move the tractor over on the other side so I can fit in some of the farm and the other farmers in the background, just to establish where this scene's actually taking place. Now I'm going to start inking this again with some repeater graphs, 0.25. I usually lay, again with the line weights, I'll do thicker outlines on stuff like the outlines of bodies as well, and you can see moving on to the 0.18 here to do all the finer details in the middle of the face. Just using lighter line weights for the details. Again with the 0.25, just laying in Ilyana now, her head and her arms, because she's actually going to be in the foreground of Colossus, in front of Colossus there, so I'll just draw in her arms and her hands. Putting in the folds and stuff in the arm. Again, not trying to be very uniform with them, and giving them a bit more of an organic sort of look. And now I can put in where Colossus's body is, and the outline of his arm and his body is going to be. That I've placed Ilyana's head and arms in the foreground. And Colossus just wearing a singlet and some pants and some boots in this scene. And now I've just realised I forgot to spot some blacks in panel 2, so I'm just spotting some blacks on Nightcrawler there, just with the 0.35 repeater graph. And also just adding a few little touch-ups to Sunfire. cleaning up panel 4 there with my kneadable eraser. Now back to inking, this time with the Crowquill, the Hunt 102 again. Decided to use the Crowquill here because I want to have a bit more of a bit more line variation in her billowing cape, billowing dress, sorry. And also with her legs and things, I'm just going to stick with the Hunt 102. As well, I want to get the sort of the creases and the folds and a bit more variation in the lines on Colossus's legs. And also just laying in where Colossus's boots are. Actually going to be spotting some blacks here, so just to fill it in a lot easier, fill in the black areas a lot quicker, just using the sticking with the Crowquill. Just laying in his other arm now. You see me sort of touching up areas, just adding a bit more some line weights here and there, and spotting some blacks on his head. Now moving on to the tractor, we have some bits sort of crumpling around his arm, so they're going to be over the top of his arm and also behind his arm, so I want to lay those in. As you can see, I'm not using a ruler here anywhere with the tractor, as the grill's sort of crumpling around his arm. Not really going to have any straight lines going on, so just doing all this stuff freehand. Now whenever you've got any sort of action or sort of impact, or even the dynamic poses that you put your characters in when you're drawing sort of superhero comics, you always try and exaggerate the action that's happening. So in this case, with a tractor hitting Colossus, I'm having the turning the lights sort of inwards and having the grill crumpling all around Colossus's arm, and the whole body of the tractor sort of scrunching up with the momentum of the tractor and the force being created from the impact with Colossus. Trying to really exaggerate the impact that's occurring. And it's the same if you've got, just say you're drawing a character with a broken arm or hand or something. You want to have, you want to draw the arm sort of broken, and you want to really show the break at an odd angle. You don't really want to do a sort of a hairline fracture where it's barely visible that the person's broken their arm. You really don't want to leave any sort of second guessing. You don't want to leave the reader second guessing what's actually happening on the page. So you really want to exaggerate and make it clear what's happening. As well, as I said, with the poses of your superheroes, you really want to have the characters, the extremities of their arms and legs, and you want to have them at as far an angle as possible to sort of maximize the pose of the characters and add a lot of dynamics to them, to the scene that you're drawing. And it really helps to sell sort of the action that's happening in the panel. if I sort of just drew the tractor with all these straight lines and not a lot of damage happening to the tractor, then it's not going to look like there was a very big impact happening, and it's sort of going to weaken the moment that Colossus's powers are revealed. So you really want to show this exaggerated impact. I think actually in the Giant Size X-Men there was, I think they showed just before the impact with Colossus sort of running, they showed bits of the tractor flying with all these impact lines, and then sort of after Colossus holding Illyana safely. But I'm actually showing the moment of impact and actually showing Colossus in this panel, so really want to show the impact here. I'm just putting in some grass now again, still with the crow quill just in the foreground. Just going a little lighter with the stuff in the background, and the grass obviously a bit shorter as it recedes into the background. I'm just putting in some rough figures now, just tightening them up with the inks. Some people sort of behind the fence. One of them has sort of jumped over the fence, which I think was in one of the panels that I'm referencing on the left there. I think I'm combining a couple of things that were in different panels here into the one panel. Some trees and on the hill there in the background, some crops sort of, or roughly putting in some squiggles where the crops would be, just to indicate lightly where it is. You don't have to go into great detail again. It's something right in the background, so it's not just sort of need to suggest what's actually happening there, not really go into any great detail. Just laying in the farmhouse again. I'm not really using a ruler here. It's not something terribly important. I'm just suggesting the farmhouse really at the background there. Just cleaning off my crocol there. Now back to the 0.18, just laying in those steel lines, the banding lines around Colossus's skin. Again, just it helps to indicate the form as well. I'm just going to lay in some shadows here on and reflection sort of lines with the 0.35. You can see me leaving sort of the white gap around where the lines are, in between the lines, so that they're still sort of visible. You'll see I do something a little different with the last panel, since it's a little larger. Use a slightly different technique for that rendering. I'm just using my finger here to add a bit of smoke with a 0.35, just dabbing it in the wet ink.